Alright, sounds like a plan. Humble and honest approach to this conversation is probably the only way we can really start it. So I'll probably better start with a bit of a confession at some dishonesty from my first vlog when I used the term social constructivist. And I'll admit that was a bit of a jab. I do consider the idea of being a social constructivist a bit of a dirty concept. And one of the reasons for that is I see it as being a sort of an end-member state on sort of the spectrum of ways of understanding this difficult problem. And I consider at the other end, the other end-member state of this issue to be the sort of the more deterministic view, the constrained idea of biology and genetics, which I would also disagree with. So I think one of the big issues that we kind of need to work to avoid is to adhere at all to either of these end-member ideas. That's what I'd like to try to do anyway from my end. And I also think this reflects on some of the issues you mentioned about how difficult it is, especially online, for people to talk about these problems. The reasons for that is that these two end members reflect the more sort of constrained and unconstrained views on human nature, essentially. And I think an important thing to recognise as well is there's a very strong correlation between sort of this constrained position and having conservative political views, and the unconstrained position with having more progressive liberal views in terms of people's political persuasions. And then I think you run into some very troubled waters, because then people start mixing up their politics with their identity of who they are, which is probably one of the sources, I think, of why there's so much vitriol around this conversation. So to start with, I'd like to sort of consider what I've put forward as being a sort of a good framework to begin this conversation with the sort of social unconstrained and the biological more constrained perspectives. Or maybe it'd be better put as a more of an axis, with biological and social along one and constrained and labile along the other. And so to address one of your points about where you think my views lie on this, I don't really know where my views lie on this. I perhaps have a bit more of a biological and constrained position than you. I think this is one of the things that I've picked up on during our previous conversations. But that isn't to say I don't recognise the importance of the sociological aspect. And to address one more of your points concerning the ways of understanding evolution and how that reflects on ways of understanding the human mind. As we both know, there are myriad ways of approaching evolution and evolutionary problems. I think much like other toolboxes like statistics, there's always a right way and a wrong way to go about it. So I'm going to end my vlog now with a bit of a contrived thought experiment, which I hope addresses my other point about things being inherited independently of the environment, because that's the key point that I'm talking about here, is inheritance. So imagine, if you will, a mad scientist has kidnapped me, and in his underground lair he's decided to clone 100 different Toms to send out around the world to be raised in different families. Kind of like the boys from Brazil. What was that movie where they cloned loads of Hitlers? But instead of Hitlers, there's loads of Toms. Now, these Toms are allowed to go out into the world. They're all raised by different families and different cultures, different parts of the world. And my sort of conjecture, when all these Toms get back together and meet their crazy scientist originate, there'll be certain behavioural patterns, personalities, or something there that they will retain. And I'm not talking something as specific as liking the same music. Perhaps they'd all have a tendency towards introversion or something like that. And in that way, this crazy scientist will be able to sort of draw a framework around all these Toms and the manners in which they behave. Anyway, I hope that provides a bit of food for thought for you. I look forward to hearing your reply. I'm just pushing some big fat babies around Sydney at the moment, so I'm a bit out of breath. But of course, this isn't forgetting, fundamentally, all of these things I'm kind of making up as I go along. All of these things I'm working out as I go along. And fundamentally, I don't know.